3 weeks of supernatural silence could tear a bond apart faster than claws ever could. Savannah knew that, as she adjusted the chain of her gold collar necklace, the one that once symbolized power, now a quiet reminder of everything unspoken. In the mirror, the woman staring back was no longer just PR royalty from Brooklyn Heights. She was marked, claimed, transformed. Her smoky eyes gave nothing away. Her black dress clung like a second skin, dotted with pearls like warning stars, its open back a calculated strike. She hadn't seen Elias's eyes in 21 days. Not really. Not since that night in the East Village when she'd mentioned her human past, and he'd walked out of the room like she'd spoken treason. Since then, they hadn't fought. No yelling, no slammed doors, just tension. Cold, controlled, dangerous. He stopped sleeping in the same room, started disappearing into his war meetings, let his beta relay messages instead of facing her. The Wolf penthouse was a throne made of glass and gold, and Savannah was done being a silent queen. Tonight, she would walk out, or try to. Her hand reached for the door. Then his voice rolled out behind her, low, raw, unmistakably alpha. "That dress isn't leaving this pack," Elias growled, "and neither are you." Before we continue, if you love supernatural stories, comment what city you are watching from, and kindly subscribe. Now back to the story. Savannah didn't flinch, but her fingers curled tighter around the gold handle of the penthouse door. The weight of his voice rolled over her like a storm front, deep, commanding, laced with something feral beneath the civility. She turned slowly, her heels echoing across the marble like a challenge. He stood there. Finally. Elias Wolf, Alpha King, wrapped in white like a ghost she couldn't outrun. Leaning against a pillar of veined marble, arms crossed, eyes fixed on her like she was prey that had dared to bare its throat. His beard was sharp, his hair tamed in that way that looked effortless but wasn't. He looked like power incarnate, just as dangerous in silence as in bloodshed. And yet, she noticed the hollowness behind his fury, the undercurrent of something that looked a lot like desperation. 3 weeks without a word, without a glance, without a growl. Until now. Savannah tilted her chin up, nails tapping once against the handle before she let her hand fall away. "You finally found your voice." I was starting to think the Alpha King forgot how to speak to his mate. His eyes darkened, not with anger, but something deeper, ancient, possessive. "You put on that dress knowing exactly what it would do to me." She let out a short breath, half laugh, half sigh. "No, Elias. I put on this dress to remind myself who the hell I am. You're just collateral." His jaw tightened. A muscle jumped. Still, he didn't move. She stepped toward him, deliberate, controlled. Her black gown rippled around her ankles like smoke, clinging to curves and memory. "You've been ignoring me for 21 days. That's 4 hours of strategic avoidance. I should know. I do crisis management for a living." He watched her approach, every line in his body taut, wired, as if waiting for the strike. She stopped just short of him. "I made peace with the idea that this," she gestured between them, "was nothing more than biology, the mate bond, primal impulse. But I need more than a claim, Elias. I need a choice, and if you're not going to make one, then I will." His breath caught, just slightly. "You'd walk away." "I'm halfway out the door." His arms uncrossed slowly. "And go where? Back to your human world? Pretend you're not half of something ancient? Something mine?" Her spine snapped straight. "I was someone before your mark. I had a name, a career, a family. I didn't ask for this bond. You just took." Silence stretched, thick, tense. Then he pushed off the wall, closing the space between them in 3 lethal strides. She held her ground, even as his scent, cedar, smoke, something wild, wrapped around her like a noose. "You think I don't feel this?" His voice dropped, rough as gravel. Every second you're near, it burns. You think I haven't gone mad every night hearing your heart beat down the hall? Then why say nothing? Why hide? Because I had to choose between protecting you and keeping you, he said, voice low, almost hoarse. And I thought letting you go meant keeping you safe. Her heart stuttered. From what? His silence was answer enough. She shook her head, stepped back, out of his orbit. You don't get to lock me in a penthouse and call it protection. You don't get to mark me, disappear, and then act like I'm the one betraying the bond because I dared to want out. You didn't want out that night at the plaza. Don't, she snapped. Don't bring that night into this. I was drunk on pheromones and adrenaline. I didn't know what I was agreeing to. His lips curved, just slightly. You knew. Every inch of you knew. She hated that he was right. Hated that her body still ached for his even now. Hated how one glance from him still pulled at the part of her that wasn't human. Doesn't matter, she said tightly. I've spent 3 weeks suffocating in a cage made of silence. That ends tonight. His expression flickered. You think leaving will sever this? I think leaving is the only thing that might let me breathe again. A beat passed, then another. Somewhere outside, a siren wailed faintly through the Manhattan night. I never meant to make you feel trapped, he said finally, softer. You walked into my world, and I thought, if I kept you close, kept you shielded, I could delay the day you realized what I really am. And what is that? She whispered. An alpha bred to conquer. A king with blood on his hands, someone who doesn't know how to be gentle. She studied him then, really studied him. Not just the tailored suit or the power he wore like a second skin, but the storm behind his eyes, the crack in the mask. You don't have to be gentle, she said. You just have to be honest. His gaze dropped to the dress again. The same one she'd worn when the bond snapped into place. When he'd first touched her wrist and the world had gone still. You wore that dress, he murmured, and I've been haunted ever since. She almost smiled. Almost. Then say it, she challenged. Say whatever you've been choking on these last 3 weeks. He didn't hesitate. You're mine, not because of the bond, not because of some archaic magic. You're mine because you challenge me, because you make me want things I was taught to kill for. Peace, a future, a partner. He reached for her then, fingers brushing the bare skin at her back. She trembled. And you're not leaving in that dress, he continued, voice rough with something that sounded dangerously like need. Because if you walk out now, I'll chase you. I'll drag every wolf in this city to the ground if it means getting you back. She swallowed. You sound awfully confident for a man who's been hiding behind marble pillars and strategy sessions. His thumb traced her spine. I wasn't hiding. I was unraveling. And now? His mouth hovered just above hers. Now I'm done being silent. Their lips met like an argument resolved through fire. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't soft. It was the collision of fury and longing, of everything unsaid burning through touch. Savannah melted into it for a heartbeat, then pulled back. Just enough. This changes nothing if you still keep secrets. No more secrets, he vowed. No more silence. Just you, me, and whatever war we have to win to keep this. She stepped back, breathing hard, heart still racing. I'm not staying because you told me to, she said. I'll stay if you fight for us, not the pack, not the politics, us. Elias nodded once, slow, certain. Then consider this the first battle, he said, and I don't lose. Her lips twitched. Good, because neither do I. Behind her, the door clicked shut, not locked, not forced, just closed. The dress stayed, so did she, for now. Elias moved before she could take another breath, placing himself directly between her and the door. The air shifted, heavier, denser, charged with the raw tension only 2 alphas could summon. And even though Savannah wasn't technically an alpha, not yet, not officially, the energy curling in her blood didn't care about bloodlines or tradition. It rose up in her like a howl begging for release. He didn't touch her. He didn't have to. His presence alone was a barricade. Tall, immovable, cold steel wrapped in white and dominance. She tilted her head, eyes narrowing as she stepped back, but not in retreat, in preparation. "You think standing in front of a door changes anything?" she asked, voice like cut glass. "I've already left in every way that matters." His jaw ticked, but he said nothing. "Move." "No." Her lips parted in disbelief, followed by a short, humorless laugh. "This is what you've been reduced to? Alpha King of Manhattan territory, standing in a marble hallway playing prison warden to your own mate?" "I'm protecting what's mine." Her eyes flashed. "You don't get to use that word like it's sacred. You've ignored me for 3 weeks. Not a word, not a look. You treated me like an obligation you were too tired to deal with. And now suddenly I'm yours again, just because I put on a dress. That dress is a declaration." "No," she snapped. "That dress is a reminder that you don't own me, that I was whole long before your bond tried to rewrite my future." He took a step forward. She didn't move. "The bond chose you," he said. "You felt it. I saw the way your pulse jumped the second I touched you at the plaza. Do you really want to argue biology with someone who spent her whole life being told she was too human to matter?" She shot back. "The bond didn't choose. It triggered. And I was too caught up in the pheromones and moonlight to realize that getting marked by you meant getting erased." "I never tried to erase you." "No?" She folded her arms, shoulders squared, holding his stare with blistering precision. "Then why am I living in a tower with guards outside my door and witches checking my blood every other day? Why haven't I spoken to my brother? Why does your pack council speak about me like I'm some asset to manage instead of a person with a spine and a voice?" His silence crackled louder than thunder. She stepped closer. "You want to talk about the bond?" "Let's talk, because whatever magic decided we're fated clearly forgot to check if we were actually compatible." He growled low, a sound that vibrated straight through her bones. "Careful," she warned, eyes gleaming. "You might scare the part of me that still gives a damn." "You're pushing me." "No, Elias," she said, voice lowering, sharpening. "I'm challenging you. There's a difference. But maybe you've forgotten what it feels like to have someone stand toe-to-toe with you and not roll over just because your alpha voice drops an octave." His eyes burned. For a moment, something savage flickered there. Not rage, not quite. Hunger, admiration, and a dangerous edge of something he'd never let her see before. Respect. He exhaled through his nose. "I didn't stay silent because I stopped caring. I stayed silent because if I opened my mouth, I would have said something I couldn't take back, something cruel or possessive, or both." She blinked. That caught her off guard. "Then say it now," she challenged. "All of it. Stop protecting me from your worst. I don't want you to hate me." She laughed. Really laughed, but it wasn't amused. It was raw. "Too late." That hit him. She saw it in the way his shoulders shifted, just slightly. "Good," he said after a pause. "Hate is better than indifference. Hate means I still matter." "You matter, Elias," she said, softer now, but not weaker. "But you don't get to decide what kind of life I live because a mark flared to life between us in the middle of a damn ballroom. You don't get to cage me because your instinct screams mine." He tilted his head. "Then what do I get?" Savannah didn't hesitate. "You get to earn me, day by day. Word by word, trust by trust." The air between them throbbed with the weight of it. "You don't believe in the bond," he said. "I believe in choice." "And if I said I choose you?" "Then prove it," she said. "Move out of the way and let me decide for myself whether I stay." His nostrils flared. "You're asking the wolf to let the prey walk free," he said. "I'm not prey," she said, stepping so close their chests nearly touched. "I'm the storm you never planned for." He closed his eyes for half a second. When they opened, they were molten. "You walk through that door," he said, voice low, rough, "and this city will burn. I can't protect you from the packs, from the Kims, from the witches sniffing for your scent." "I didn't ask for protection," she whispered. "I asked for partnership." His hand lifted, hovered over her arm, but didn't touch. "You are chaos in a dress, Savannah Blake." She leaned in. "And you're the fire dumb enough to think you can contain me." They stood like that, breath to breath, heartbeat to heartbeat, until the air broke with the faintest tremble in her chest. He stepped aside. Her brows lifted in surprise. "I said I wouldn't stop you," he murmured. "Doesn't mean I won't follow." Savannah stared at him for a long, pulsing second, and then, without another word, she turned and walked straight toward the door, her heels clicking in defiance. At the threshold, she paused, just for a breath, and without turning said, "If you follow, Elias, don't do it as my alpha. Do it as a man ready to fight beside me, not over me." She didn't wait for his answer, and for the first time in 3 weeks, he didn't try to stop her. Savannah didn't take the elevator. She needed the cold bite of the stairwell to cut through the heat still clinging to her skin. Each step echoed too loudly, too fast, like her heartbeat refusing to settle. She wanted space, air, anything that wasn't Elias's voice still rumbling through her bloodstream. But halfway between the penthouse and the next floor, the past came for her instead. The Plaza Hotel. That night had been a symphony of distraction, glass clinking, laughter in crystal chandeliers, women in gowns that could buy real estate. Savannah had been there for PR, not pleasure. A charity gala for supernatural integration was exactly the kind of high-profile event that needed firm messaging, clean optics, and zero drama. She hadn't expected the tension, the charged undercurrent in the air, the way shifters moved through the room like apex predators dressed in Armani. And then there was him, Elias Wolf. She'd known his name, everyone in her world did. CEO of Wolf Industries, rumored billionaire, real alpha. The kind of man who didn't just command rooms, he owned them. But she hadn't expected the quiet. He hadn't tried to impress. He hadn't needed to. He'd stood by the bar like he belonged to the shadows, watching, waiting. And when their eyes finally met, something ancient in her bones snapped awake. She remembered the first second with a clarity that made her breath catch. The way his gaze didn't drift over her body like every other man in the room. The way it landed, like he recognized her, like he already knew. She should have walked away, should have dropped her glass, pretended her phone rang, anything to avoid the gravity that started pulling her toward him like she had no say in the matter. But she didn't. She crossed the ballroom and introduced herself. Her hand found his. The moment they touched, skin to skin, heat to heat, it was like the floor vanished. The mate bond roared to life. Not a whisper, not a tease, a full-throttle, soul-rending ignition. She'd heard about it, the snap, the pull, that unbearable knowing, but nothing had prepared her for how violent it felt. Like her body had been struck by lightning from the inside out, like someone had reached into her chest and carved a word into her heart. His. She'd yanked her hand back like she'd touched fire, but Elias hadn't flinched. He'd just watched her, his expression unreadable, the barest flicker of restraint behind his eyes. "I'm sorry," she'd whispered, backing away. "That was unexpected," he finished, voice low, rough velvet. She hadn't been able to breathe. Half human, latent, unclaimed. She wasn't supposed to feel the bond like this. "You're not supposed to be my—" "I am." Simple. Certain. Savannah had fled the ballroom like it was a war zone. Every nerve in her body had screamed run. She'd stumbled into the alley behind the plaza, heels clacking against pavement, the cold slapping her face harder than any truth ever had. And then he'd followed, not with fury, not with demand, just presence. He'd walked out of the shadows like they belonged to him, like the night bent around his will. "You don't know me," she'd said, back pressed to brick, hands shaking. "I know enough," he said, "and you feel it too. That doesn't make it real." "It is real. It's just inconvenient." That made her laugh, sharp and broken. "You're insane." He stepped closer. "No, just already ruined." She hadn't understood what he meant. Not until later. Not until the nightmares and the silence and the suffocating security teams. But that night, before it all fractured, he'd touched her again. His fingers had brushed her cheek, his thumb tracing the corner of her mouth like he was learning it, memorizing. And then he kissed her. Not like a stranger, not like someone making a claim, but like a man starving. The bond cracked open inside her like thunder splitting the sky. Her hands had fisted in his jacket, her legs shaking, her mouth moving with his in some ancient rhythm she didn't know she'd been waiting for. She didn't know how long it lasted, just that when it ended she felt marked, not bitten, not physically claimed, but seen, altered. And then the confusion set in. How could something feel that right and still feel like surrender? Savannah had pulled away. "I can't do this," she'd whispered, tears burning behind her eyes. "This isn't who I am. I don't belong in your world." He hadn't stopped her, not then, not when she walked away again. She thought maybe that meant he didn't want her badly enough, or that he respected her boundaries, or that he was just as stunned by the bond as she was. But now, after 3 weeks of silence, after everything they said tonight, she realized what had really happened. He hadn't stopped her because he knew she'd come back, not because he forced her, but because he believed the bond would do the work for him. He'd underestimated her will, her fire, and she had underestimated his restraint. Savannah slowed on the stairs, her palm resting against the cool concrete wall. She could still feel that kiss from the plaza like it had just happened, like her mouth remembered every second, every breath. She ran because she was afraid. Not of him. Of what she'd felt, of how much of herself she'd seen reflected in him, the ambition, the rage, the loyalty, the darkness she kept buried behind boardroom smiles and perfect posture. She ran because Elias Wolf saw it all, and wanted it, and that terrified her, because once you're truly seen, you can never go back to being invisible. She had spent her whole life trying to control every part of herself, her image, her career, her blood, and then one touch blew it all to hell. But Elias didn't chase her from the plaza that night, not with footsteps. He chased her by invading her world. Quietly, relentlessly, the email from Wolf Industries offering her a contract. The new client on her roster with PAC affiliations. The security detail that started shadowing her in Brooklyn for her protection. She should have noticed sooner. The slow tightening of the leash, the way he moved her without touching her, and still, when he finally showed up at her door 3 weeks ago, offering protection, shelter, safety, she said yes, because some part of her wanted to be caught, but she didn't want to be kept, and that's the difference Elias hadn't understood until tonight. She didn't regret the kiss, or the bond, or even the fire it lit in her veins. She regretted being afraid of it. Savannah stood still for a long moment in the stairwell, the hum of the city vibrating through the concrete. She didn't know where she was going anymore. Down, out, back. But she knew this much. She ran because she had to reclaim herself before she could ever give anything to someone else. And Elias? He chased her not with power, but with faith, and maybe, just maybe, she wasn't running anymore. Savannah didn't go far. She'd made it as far as the underground garage, the soft glow of the penthouse elevator still bleeding gold onto the concrete floor behind her. But the cold didn't bite hard enough, and the echo of her footsteps wasn't loud enough to drown out everything Elias had left unsaid. She stood beside one of his armored black SUVs, arms crossed, dress brushing her calves like shadows. For once, the city outside didn't roar. It waited, just like she did. The elevator chimed behind her. She didn't turn, but her pulse kicked up anyway. "I knew you'd follow," she said quietly. "I didn't want to," Elias said, his voice steady as boots against the pavement. "But I also didn't want you to leave thinking I was only ever silence." He stopped a few feet from her, hands at his sides. No suit jacket now, just his shirt sleeves rolled to his forearms, veins visible beneath skin. Controlled strength, stripped down, a man trying not to intimidate. She didn't look at him, not yet. "I thought the silence was your answer," she said. "It wasn't." "Then what was it?" He let out a long breath, rough and worn. "The Kims made a move the night after the Plaza Gala. They're pushing into the East River territories, 3 border attacks, 2 dead, 1 missing." She turned now, eyes sharp. "You told me nothing. I didn't want to pull you deeper. You pulled me the moment you let that bond settle in my chest like a wildfire." He nodded once, slow. "I know." Savannah stepped closer. "Why didn't you tell me about the war?" "Because I thought I could end it before it touched you. Before it touched your family." Her heart stopped. "What do you mean, my family?" Elias hesitated, just a beat too long. "Elias." He met her eyes. "Your brother." The words dropped like a stone. "What about Owen?" "We intercepted a communication 3 nights ago. The Kims know who you are. They know you're mine. They've been watching your human connections." She froze. "You're saying, Owen, he's a target, insurance, a pressure point." Her vision blurred at the edges. Not fear, not yet, rage. "And your solution was silence." "I tripled the security around him." "You didn't tell me," she snapped, taking another step. "He's my blood, my family, my responsibility." "And I made it mine the second I claimed you," he said, voice low, steady. "I thought keeping it from you was mercy. You don't get to decide what I can handle." "No," he said, softer now. "I see that." She stared at him, every muscle taut. "What else haven't you told me?" Another silence stretched between them. Not cold this time, cautious, fragile. "There's more to your bloodline," he said at last. "More than human, more than shifter." Her mouth went dry. "What do you mean?" "You're a hybrid, yes, but not just human wolf." She didn't breathe. "You carry traces of something older," he continued. "Rare, dormant, but present. The witches we brought in, Cameron included, they confirmed it." Savannah shook her head slowly. "This is a test. You're testing how much I'll believe." "No, this is why the packs are circling, why the Kims want you, why the bond was so violent that night. Your blood reacts to ancient magic. Your existence destabilizes the current balance." She looked down at her hands. Perfect, manicured, human-looking. "What am I?" she whispered. "I don't know," Elias admitted. "Not fully, but the witches say your mother's line traces back to the originals." Her heart stopped. "That's impossible. That's supposed to be extinct," he finished. "Yeah. Turns out myths tend to lie." She turned away, one hand bracing against the hood of the SUV. Her reflection in the tinted window looked too still, too composed for someone whose world had just shifted again. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "Because they couldn't confirm it until recently, and because I was afraid of what it would do to you." "Afraid I'd run again?" "No," he said quietly. "Afraid you wouldn't." Her throat tightened. "You have every right to hate me," he added. "But I couldn't keep pretending you were just a civilian caught in something too big. You're not. You're central to it. You have power in you that none of us understand yet." Savannah turned around, eyes glassy, voice sharp. So what now? You lock me up again? Try to use me as leverage against the Kims? Breed some kind of supernatural weapon? His expression didn't even flicker. No, he said, I tell you everything. And then I give you a choice. Her breath caught. Stay and fight, he said, or walk away and hide. But this time, you decide. She didn't answer. Not right away, because something old had just cracked open inside her. Not the bond, not magic. Truth. Elias didn't try to fill the silence. He just stood there, waiting, watching, not like a captor, but like a king surrendering his crown. And for the first time in weeks, Savannah didn't feel trapped. She felt seen. She stepped forward, slowly, until she was close enough to feel the heat of him. You should have told me the moment you knew. I know. You should have trusted me with this. I know. She searched his face for deceit, for manipulation, found none. I'm not staying because I'm scared, she said. I didn't think you were. I'm staying, she whispered, because if my brother's in danger, then there's no place I'd rather be than in front of him, teeth bared. A slow breath escaped him. And if I'm some kind of ancient wild card, she added, then I deserve to know what I'm capable of. You do, he said, and you will. Her eyes met his. Then let's stop pretending I'm fragile. A flicker of pride crossed his face, and something else. Something hungry, but not for her power, for her. You've always been dangerous, he said. You just didn't know it yet. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Let's make sure the Kims learn that the hard way. And for the first time since the plaza, Elias Wolf bowed his head, not in defeat, in respect. The moon was high when Savannah stepped into the ramble. The woods curled through Central Park like a forgotten secret, tangled, dark, and breathing. Beneath the city's hum, this place pulsed with something older, wild. The pack said it was sacred ground, neutral, untouched by blood oaths or politics. Savannah had never believed in sanctuaries, not until tonight. Leaves whispered beneath her heels as she walked deeper, the hem of her coat brushing frost-kissed grass. Cameron had insisted she come here. Not Elias, not the guards. Just the witch with eyes like winter who said softly, Your wolf is quiet because you're never alone. Let her speak where the world can't hear her. Now, Savannah was alone. No Elias, no marble, no gold leaf lies, just her and the silence. It had been 3 days since Elias told her about Owen. 3 days since the word original wrapped itself around her throat like a second skin. She hadn't seen her brother yet. Elias said they were moving him to a secure location in Connecticut. She hadn't slept, not really. Just drifted in and out of rage, worry, and something bigger. Louder, restless. She thought maybe it was grief, but tonight she knew. It was the wolf. Savannah stopped in the clearing, the trees opening around her like they knew she was coming. The air shifted. The scent of moss and iron curled under her nose, and her skin buzzed. Then the whisper came. Not from the trees, from within. Let go. She blinked. No. Let go. I don't even know what that means. But she did. Deep down. She knew because it burned in her chest, behind her ribs, in the place where Elias's touch used to linger. The place where the bond pulsed. But this wasn't about him. This wasn't about mates or magic or bloodlines. This was about her. About the woman who spent 29 years pretending to be smaller than she was, the strategist, the survivor. The girl who sharpened her smile into armor and learned how to make kings listen without ever raising her voice. She'd been fighting the bond, but worse, she'd been fighting herself. Footsteps snapped behind her. Savannah turned, but didn't startle. The wolves who stepped into the clearing weren't from her pack. She didn't need a sigil to tell her that. One wore a suit, One didn't bother. Both bared their teeth when they saw her. "Kim's," she said flatly. The taller one smiled. "Miss Blake, you've been hard to find." "I wasn't hiding." "No," he agreed. "But now that we've got the confirmation we needed, you won't be hard to take." Savannah smiled, slow and cold. "I was hoping someone would try me tonight." The shorter one lunged first. No words, just claws and fury and instinct. Savannah didn't run. She stepped into it. His shoulder caught hers, but before she hit the ground, something in her snapped. Not fear, not panic. A door. The world went white, then gold, then red. Her scream wasn't human. It was a howl. She didn't remember hitting the earth, didn't remember her body shifting, not bone by bone like the stories said, but in a single breath, like her skin remembered what her mind refused to accept. Her wolf wasn't dormant. It was waiting. The second attacker froze, but she didn't. Savannah moved like liquid rage, all muscle and speed and fury. She tore into the wolf that had touched her, her fangs slicing into flesh like justice. Her mind dimmed to instinct, but somewhere, distant and pulsing, she thought, "No one touches my family. Not again." The suit-wearing wolf shifted too late. She was already on him, not killing, just breaking. Letting them feel what it meant to hunt a creature built from centuries of silence and suppression. When it was over, she stood in the clearing, not naked, not confused, transformed. Her body was hers again, her heart beat loud in her ears, her hands bloodied, but her spine straight. She didn't fall to her knees, she didn't cry. She rose. Behind her, Elias appeared in the trees, silent as shadow. She didn't turn. "I felt it," he said, voice reverent. "The second it happened." She nodded. "Good." He took another step. "Are you hurt?" "No." Another beat passed. "Then say it," he said, quiet now. "Say why you stayed." She turned to face him. The moon carved light down her cheekbones, her dress torn, her arms bare and shaking. "I didn't stay for you." His jaw tensed. He nodded once. "I stayed," she said, "because there's a war coming, and my brother's at the center of it, because I won't let anyone else decide my fate, because I finally remembered who the hell I am." Elias looked at her then like he was seeing her for the first time. Not a woman in a black dress, not a mate, not a pawn in a bloodline war, but something bigger. Savannah Blake. Alpha. Hybrid. Storm. She stepped forward, her voice steady. "This is my city too," she said. "My pack now, my fight. And if you want me at your side, Elias, it won't be as your claim, it'll be as your equal." His gaze burned gold. "You always have been." "No," she said. "Not until I decided to be." Then she walked past him. The chain was broken, and the wolf was awake. The scent of old wood, iron, and dominance hung heavy in the Wolf Pack Council chamber. The room was buried beneath the penthouse. Stone walls, no windows, just candlelight flickering along hand-carved beams and sigils older than the country itself. A circle of leather chairs surrounded the center pit, where wolves had once fought for dominance, territory, and rank. Now the battles were quieter, sharper. Savannah stepped into the room first. She wore black again, but not the kind designed to seduce. This was strategy, high neckline, tailored sleeves, a belt that cinched like armor. Her hair was pulled back, clean and deliberate. The fresh scar just below her collarbone remained uncovered. She didn't hide what had happened in the ramble. She wanted them to see it. Elias entered behind her, but he didn't walk beside her. He didn't need to. They all saw it. She didn't just walk like a woman anymore. She walked like a wolf. A murmur rippled through the room. The elders were already seated, 6 of them, spread in a half moon, all of them older than Elias, some older than her parents. Their eyes flicked to her with measured disdain, curiosity, and fear. Savannah knew that look. She'd seen it in boardrooms her whole career, men sizing her up, deciding what box to put her in before she opened her mouth. Except these men had claws. "Savannah Blake," rumbled the elder to the left. Reed, if she remembered correctly. Half-blood, human-born, latent until 3 nights ago. Savannah stepped into the center of the ring. Her boots echoed on the stone. "Correct. And now you presume to sit in on council meetings?" "Incorrect," she replied calmly. "I presume to contribute to them." A few raised eyebrows, one amused snort. Elias remained silent behind her, watching, waiting. Another elder, Lena, sharp-eyed, silver-haired, with a reputation for brutal efficiency, leaned forward. "Why now?" she asked. "You've been in this territory for weeks. Elias kept you close, but off the map. You barely spoke. You resisted the bond. And now, after a public shift and one minor skirmish, you think you've earned a seat at this table?" Savannah's eyes met hers, steady, unflinching. "I didn't shift in front of a mirror," she said. "I shifted in the ramble, alone, against 2 Kims who weren't there to talk." That silenced the room. "I didn't kill them," she added, "but I made sure they limped home with a message." "And what message is that?" Reed asked dryly. She turned to him, voice sharp as glass. "That I'm not the weakness they think I am, that the wolf pack doesn't leave its own vulnerable, and that whatever I am, original, hybrid, unknown, I'm not afraid of what's inside me anymore." She let that hang for a moment. No one spoke. Good. Savannah paced slowly in the ring now, the way Elias had once taught her to do when speaking to a hostile room. "You all want peace," she said, "but none of you are willing to admit that peace requires leverage. Right now, the Kims believe they have it. They think they can rattle the edges of this territory, make Elias look unstable, push him into rash retaliation." "And what would you suggest?" Lena asked. "We don't respond?" "No," Savannah said. "You respond smarter. You stop playing defense. You control the narrative." She looked to the wall where a map of the 5 boroughs stretched from floor to ceiling, pins, notes, and markings all over it like a war map, which it was. "You leak intel," she said. "Just enough to suggest that the Kims aren't after Elias. They're after me, and that if they try to come through him, they'll have to answer to something older than their bloodline." Reed frowned. "You want to bait them?" "I want to destabilize them," she corrected. "They've had the element of surprise. Let's return the favor." Lena tilted her head. "And if they decide to strike harder?" Savannah's smile was cold. "Then I let my wolf off the leash next time." A long silence followed. Then a quiet, unexpected sound broke it. Elias, laughing. Just once. Just enough. He stepped into the ring finally, his presence filling the space beside her without a word. "You see now," he said, voice low but caring. "She's not here because of the bond. She's here because she earned it." He looked at Savannah then, and for a heartbeat, something softer passed between them. "I brought her in because the war changed the second she shifted. She's not the weapon. She's the variable, the one they didn't calculate." Reed leaned back, arms crossed. "And what happens if we lose her to them?" Savannah answered before Elias could. "Then you deserve to lose." A few of them bristled. Good again, because if they couldn't handle her words, they'd never survive the war. Lena stood slowly. Her voice was measured, but there was a flicker of something grudging in her eyes. "Then let's see what you can do, Savannah Blake. There's a summit in 4 days, Roosevelt Island, neutral territory. If the Kims show, you'll speak. You'll represent this pack. And if they challenge your place—" "They won't," Savannah said. "And if they do?" Savannah met her stare. "Then I answer in a language they understand." Lena nodded once. "So be it." The meeting broke. Elders filed out in silence. But something in the air had shifted, a crack in the old order, a ripple through the stone. Savannah stayed behind. Elias watched her, eyes unreadable. "You sure you're ready for this?" he asked. She turned to him, finally exhaling the breath she'd held since stepping into that circle. "No," she said, "but that never stopped me before." He grinned. "Good," he said, "because you're not just fighting for the pack now." "I know," she said, stepping closer. "I'm fighting for Owen, for myself, for whatever the hell this power in my blood is, but I'm also fighting for the future of this city." She looked at the map again, and for the first time she saw it not as territory, but as something she could shape. Not with claws, but with strategy and blood. The first scream didn't come from outside the gates. It came from inside the wolf compound. Savannah heard it through the thick oak doors of the map room, a sound too guttural to be warning, too broken to be war cry. Elias was already moving before the second scream followed. She didn't wait for permission. She was at his side by the time they hit the hall. The walls of the penthouse shook. Something crashed, glass maybe, or stone. And then came the unmistakable scent of blood. Not just blood, pack blood. Elias snarled low in his throat. Not at her, not at the threat, at the realization. "Internal breach," he said. "Someone let them in." "How?" Savannah demanded, her breath tight. "You said the inner ring was sealed." It was. His eyes gleamed gold, shifting fast as the beast underneath took the reins. But he didn't shift fully. Not yet. Not until he knew who he was fighting. They rounded the corner into chaos. Two of his enforcers were already down, one slumped against the marble wall, the other dragging a torn leg toward the cover. Blood painted the floor in long streaks, too much for it to be superficial. The air buzzed with an energy Savannah had only felt once before, in the ramble, just before she shifted. And standing in the center of it all, unfazed, eyes black as pitch, was Dante. Beta-ranked, trusted, quiet, loyal, or so Elias had sworn. Savannah had met him twice. He was always the first to open doors and the last to speak. Now, he stood over the injured, not with remorse, but calculation. Elias stopped cold. "Dante." Dante looked up, slow. "Alpha." The word dripped sarcasm. Savannah's pulse jumped, her wolf stirred. "You opened the security gates," Elias said. "You let them in." Dante tilted his head. "I opened a door. Whether they walk through it is up to them." Savannah stepped forward. "Why?" "Because you've already lost," Dante said. "You just haven't realized it yet." Savannah didn't wait for more. She moved, not like a strategist, not like a politician, but like a wolf. Dante lunged, so did Elias, but Savannah got there first. Their bodies collided hard, Dante's claws flashing toward her face, but she ducked under, twisted, grabbed his arm, and slammed her elbow into his throat with precision she didn't have a week ago. He staggered back, surprised, underestimating her. Mistake. Her wolf surged. Not full shift, not yet, but enough to make her eyes burn gold, and her strength snap like a whip. He came again. Faster. This time Elias joined, shoulder-checking Dante into the wall so hard the plaster cracked. The two men fought in brutal, practiced rhythms, alpha versus traitor. But the turning point wasn't brute strength. It was her. Dante tried to use Elias's size against him, twisting behind him for a strike to the back. But Savannah was already moving. She launched from the side, feet slamming into Dante's ribs, knocking him off trajectory. They hit the floor in a tangle of limbs. He tried to shift. She didn't let him. Her claws came fast, not deadly, not deep, but exact. One slashed to the tendon in his forearm, another at the base of his neck. Crippling, not killing. She didn't need to kill him to win. She just needed him down. When Elias wrenched Dante off her and slammed him into the stone, Savannah rose from the floor, breath ragged, chest heaving. Blood soaked her sleeves, some of it hers, most of it his. Elias looked at her then, not shocked, not worried, something worse, awed. "He was going to blindside you," she said, wiping her cheek. "I saw it before you did." "I know. I didn't hesitate." "I know." She met his eyes. "Do you trust me now?" "I never stopped," he said. "But now they won't either." Behind them, pack members emerged, drawn by the sounds, the scent. Council members, enforcers, a few of the younger wolves, still wide-eyed and shaken. They saw Dante in a heap, saw the blood on the floor, and saw her standing over it like she'd been born there. No one said a word. Elias turned to the room. "Beta Dante has betrayed his alpha, his pack, and our protection oaths. The Kims were given our access codes through him. We bleed because he chose to sell us for a throne that does not exist." He looked to Savannah. "But we stand because she chose not to run." Silence. Then Lena stepped forward. Her eyes took in the wreckage. The blood. The quiet ferocity still burning in Savannah's stance. "She's more than a symbol now," Lena said. "She's proof." Another elder murmured agreement. "She risked herself to save you. She fought without backup. She made the call before you did." Savannah swallowed hard. This wasn't flattery, it was recognition. Elias's hand brushed hers, barely a touch, but she felt it, not just in her skin, in the bond, stronger now, steadier, not forged in a ballroom, not triggered by fate, earned. Later, after Dante was chained and taken below, after wounds were stitched and apologies made and power rebalanced, Elias found her on the balcony. She was still in bloodied clothes, still breathing like the adrenaline hadn't faded. He didn't say anything. He just stood beside her, the skyline glittering beneath them, the city still alive despite the violence behind them. "They won't question me again," she said quietly. "No," he replied. "They won't. They saw me as your liability, your weakness. And now," she turned to him, "now they see me as your weapon." He hesitated. "Is that what you want to be?" She was quiet a long time. Then, "No. I want to be your partner." His jaw flexed. "You are." She looked down at her bloodied hands. "This bond," she said, "it's no longer just magic." "No," he agreed. "It's choice." She reached for his hand. Interlaced their fingers, and this time, when the power between them surged, it didn't burn, it aligned. Two forces no longer circling, just moving forward, together. The ferry cut through the East River like a blade, its hull groaning against the current. Manhattan shimmered behind them, glass and ambition and old blood. Ahead, Roosevelt Island waited in silence, flanked by steel bridges and secrets. Neutral ground. No wolves owned it, but all of them knew better than to call it safe. Savannah stood at the bow, wind threading through her hair. She didn't flinch when Elias stepped beside her. He'd learned to walk quieter around her now, not out of fear, but respect. "They'll be waiting," he said. "They always are." She didn't look at him. She didn't need to. The summit had been called 2 days after the betrayal. The Kims hadn't claimed responsibility, but they hadn't denied the attack either. The council demanded a show of strength. Elias suggested Roosevelt Island. Savannah agreed. It was time. Time to stop surviving. Time to lead. She adjusted the lapel of her coat. Underneath, the scar from the ramble still throbbed when she breathed deep. A reminder. She didn't hide it anymore. That was the thing about blood. It marked you. But it also made you real. Elias watched her in the reflection of the glass. "We can still shift strategy. You don't have to." "I do," she said. "And not for them." He was silent. They disembarked to waiting silence. No applause, no greetings. Just rows of eyes watching from beneath dark coats and ancient crests. Witches, vampires, alpha emissaries. And at the far end of the cleared plaza, the Kims, lean and calculating, their beta front and center, smirking like the throne was already theirs. Savannah didn't flinch. She walked beside Elias toward the circle of standing stones, older than the city, older than the packs, and didn't stop until she was at its center. Someone muttered her name. Not loudly, not with reverence, just enough to test her footing. She let the words pass. Elias spoke first. The wolf pack has held the East Coast for 3 generations, through blood, war, and alliance. We've stood alone because it was necessary. He paused. But alone is no longer enough. That got attention. Savannah kept her hands clasped behind her back, her spine straight. Elias turned slightly toward her, but his eyes remained on the crowd. As of today, I step down as sole ruler of the wolf pack. Murmurs, shock, the scent of power shifting in real time. I do not abdicate. I do not surrender. I evolve. He nodded toward her, and then he stepped back. Savannah stepped forward. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. I am Savannah Blake, she said. Hybrid-born, wolf-awakened, mate-marked, but not claimed. I do not come to be crowned. I come to stand. She looked across the sea of faces, pack and outsider alike. For too long, leadership has meant isolation. Strength has meant silence. Power has meant control, but I am not here to continue that legacy. I am here to rewrite it. The beta from the Kim line stepped forward, arms crossed. You speak like a queen, but wear no mark. Where is your coronation? Where is your lunar seal? Savannah didn't blink. I don't need a ritual to prove what I already am. He smiled without humor. Without the lunar rite, you're just a consort in a pretty coat. The wind picked up. Savannah let it curl around her, lifted her chin. I bled for this pack before I was ever accepted into it. I protected my alpha before I accepted the bond. I earned my place not in bed or bloodline, but in battle. She turned to Elias then, and for a moment the world narrowed. Do you stand with me? His voice didn't waver. Always. He crossed the space between them, unbuttoned the cuff of his shirt, and extended his wrist. She took his hand, clasped it tight. Their bond lit up like wildfire, visible only to those who could feel magic. But they felt it, the ripple, the surge, the quiet roar of 2 souls locking into place. Savannah lifted their joined hands. This is not dominance, this is not submission, this is partnership. A pause, then, I claim the title of Luna, not as accessory, not as shadow, but as equal. The summit stilled, and then slowly one elder placed a closed fist to their chest, then another, then half the circle. The Kims didn't move, but they didn't interrupt. Savannah stepped back, the fire still humming through her veins. Elias turned to face the crowd with her, and for the first time in centuries, the wolf pack stood behind a united front. Alpha, Luna, no longer ruled by one, but led by 2. They didn't need a throne. They were the throne. The city blinked beneath them, endless and gold, its heartbeat steady in the distance. Manhattan pulsed like it always had, ruthless and alive, but here, in the wolf penthouse high above it all, the world had quieted. Savannah stood by the window, Roosevelt Island, a smudge in the dark. She hadn't spoken since they left the summit. She didn't need to. Every breath since had been full of something unspoken, a charge between her skin and the night. Behind her, Elias moved without sound. The door shut. The weight of it sealed the world out. He didn't ask if she was okay. He didn't offer congratulations. He crossed the room slowly, until she felt the heat of him at her back, Not like a threat, not like a claim, but something steady, present, grounded. His hands didn't grab. They waited, and when she turned, her eyes met his with the kind of knowing that didn't need words anymore. Elias reached for her slowly. One hand brushed her shoulder, fingers barely grazing the fabric of the coat she wore over the dress. The same one she'd chosen for tonight's summit. Midnight blue, tailored to her new role, fierce in its structure but soft in its movement. A statement, not a seduction, but now it felt like something else entirely. His fingers slid beneath the collar, and he paused, just enough for her to nod. Then he peeled it off her, inch by inch. Not like he was undressing her, like he was unveiling her. The fabric whispered down her arms and pooled at her feet. She stood in her slip, bare beneath the glow of the city lights, but didn't step back. He took in the sight of her, not just her body, but all of it. The woman, the wolf, the Luna. She didn't look away. "Still think I'm the storm you weren't ready for?" she asked softly. Elias's lips curved, just slightly. "No," he said. "I think you're the storm I was made to survive." She reached for him this time, hands finding his chest, sliding up to his collar as she worked the buttons free. Not rushed, not to prove anything. This was different. The heat was still there, coiled and alive, but it wasn't desperation now. It was recognition. He let her undress him without a word, let her lay claim the same way she had on Roosevelt Island. Not with fangs, not with ceremony, with choice. They moved toward the bed, not as Alpha and Luna, not as predator and prey, but as partners who had bled together, fought side by side, and faced the weight of legacy without breaking. When he kissed her, it was reverent, not worshipful, equal. His hands didn't brand, they learned. Her mouth didn't surrender, it invited. They found each other like people who had already lost everything once and weren't willing to make the same mistake twice. And when they finally collapsed into each other, tangled in silk sheets and sweat and breath, it wasn't about possession. It was about belonging. Savannah lay against his chest, his heart beating steady under her cheek. She traced lazy circles along his skin, eyes half closed. "So, this is it," she murmured. "We've done it." He exhaled, one hand smoothing through her hair. "No," he said. "You did it." She smiled. Correction accepted. They lay in silence for a while, the kind that didn't demand to be filled. Then, quietly, "You scared them today." She blinked up at him. "Who?" "Everyone." She huffed a soft laugh. "Good." He looked down at her, serious now. They saw something they didn't think was possible. "What's that?" "An alpha who doesn't need to dominate. A Luna who doesn't need to obey. A pack that belongs to both of us." She turned onto her back, staring at the ceiling. "It still feels surreal." "You bled for it." "I would again." He reached for her hand, threaded their fingers. "We're not done," he said. "There will be more threats, more eyes on us, more wolves who think they can fracture what we've built." She squeezed his hand. "Let them try." He smiled into the dark. Outside, the city moved on, uncaring. Horns echoed in the distance, lights blinked like stars. Somewhere, the Kims were recalculating. Somewhere, allies were choosing sides. Somewhere, the future was already shifting beneath their feet. But here, in this room, in this moment, Savannah Blake and Elias Wolf were not preparing for war. They were just two people who had learned what it meant to fight together. She didn't belong to the pack belonged to them.